Good morning, and welcome to the Nevada Legislative Building. I'm Tina Ashdown. I'm a constituent services analyst and program facilitator. I'm here to support and coordinate your visit today. I'd like to first start by acknowledging staff who helped provide this experience for you. The Secretary of Senate, Brendan Busey, the Chief Clerk of the Assembly, Susan Furlong, and Senate and Assembly staff, Broadcast and Production Services, Constituent Services, Information Technology Services, and the Legislative Police. As guests of the legislature, I'd like to make you aware of a few considerations. You are sitting in the personal desks of Nevada legislators. Please respect their space and their belongings. Think about your rooms at home. Would you want someone rifling through your desk drawers and handling your stuff? Leave the desks the way you found them. State business is going on in this building. People are working, so please be respectful of their environment. Trash cans are conveniently located throughout the building. Gum or trash belongs in the waste receptacles. Maps are posted throughout the building too, where you can find the locations of restrooms. Please remember to use proper decorum when making your remarks. There's a sheet on each of your desks with a reminder. Sit where your name is located when the proceedings start, but please keep in mind that the proceedings have already started. This is already being broadcast live. The BPS, Broadcast and Production Services, has a seating chart with the names on them, so don't move those names. Please consider yourselves unofficial representatives of the state of Nevada. And remember that in this building, you're almost always on camera, especially in the chambers and like I said, you're being broadcast live. The web address for that broadcast is on the sheets on your desk. It'll take your parents or your friends to the place where they can find Nevada Boys State Senate or Assembly, and then they'll be able to view the proceedings as they happen. There are microphones on your desk. Please turn them on when you're speaking and off when you're not speaking. They are very delicate equipment, so please refrain from tapping on them or blowing into them. The other thing is, please realize that if you forget and leave your mic on and you lean over and whisper something to someone, that is picked up. So make sure that when you're not talking about your bill, your mic is turned off. Your votes will register as the name of the legislator who sits in that place. So instead, when Mr. Paris votes, your vote will come up on the screen as Miller. Unfortunately, because we don't have a quorum in each of the chambers, it's going to look like everything fails because there's no quorum. So you're going to have to make sure that you count them up to see which ones fail and which ones pass. We are fortunate that our government buildings in Nevada are very accessible to the public. However, you may have noticed the legislative police officers are in the building. They are responsible for the safety of every person who walks on these grounds. Officer Gold is here to welcome you and acquaint you with what the legislative police do and what they expect from you.
Thank you, Tina. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes, sir. All right, so first of all, like you said, I'm Department. Our primary mission here is basically to protect life and property for everybody in the legislature, outside the legislature on the grounds, or anywhere the legislature conducts business, whether it be in Biawowie, Nevada, or Caliente, or wherever they're doing business. We're there to protect them and people there as well. Our division is broken down into 5 sections. When you guys first came in, you saw the screening and x-ray section. So that's our first section. We have a surveillance and communication section. If you look around, you can see many cameras in here. There are cameras throughout the entire building and grounds. Our surveillance people are sitting there now, and they're watching you. At the same time, time they're watching the public and everybody in and out of the building. We're broken down to a patrol division that also helps with the houses during meetings. We have an investigations and intelligence section and a taken care of protection section. We have 5 divisions here that work for the legislature. Today we have 6 officers on duty. If you need anything, just look at us. We'll help you get you on your way. If you leave the building for any kind of reason, you have to go through screening again. We got screening here in the front, screening in the north. Behind you is an emergency exit. So in case of fires, the closest exit is right here, right behind you. All right, so don't use the emergency exits for anything but emergencies because sirens will go off. All right. We talked about bathrooms. There's bathrooms all over the building. You're welcome to explore the building. It is a public building. If there's meetings going on, please be cognizant if you're going to enter and listen to the meetings. If you get lost, look for us. We also have emergency medical technicians that work here as well. So if you're not feeling well, come get us or talk to Tina or somebody. They'll get a hold of us and we'll come run in and we'll take care of you. In case there's an emergency, they'll also call 911. Through our building, we have our internal 911. If you press 911 on your cell phone, you're going to get the Carson City Fire Department. And they're not going to tell us what's going on. We kind of need to know what's going on in our own building. If you're using the facilities, only flush duct that goes down the toilet is designed to go down the toilet. We had that problem in the past. There's a gift shop in the back. You're welcome to go in and look at the gifts and whatever else you want to purchase, but only 5 people in at a time. And we only have 2 people that are working inside today. And for them to personally help you and see what you're looking for, only 5 people at a time. If they invite more in, that's up to them, but only 5 people at a time. You guys have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Welcome to the legislature. Have a great day. We'll see you guys later.
I hope this will be a memorable day as you put everything you learned this week into practice. Thank you for listening so nicely.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how this microphone system works. Do we have anything else to go over before we begin? Okay.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the POW.
That's fine. Resolution 288, adopted at the 67th National Convention of the American Legion, Resolution NC 2-94, adopted for the 23rd National Convention of the Sons of the American Legion. Calls for a designated POW, MIA, empty chair in all official meetings of the Sons of the American Legion as a physical symbol of the thousands of American POWs and MIAs still unaccounted for, as a reminder that for all of us to spare no effort and to secure the release of any American prisoners from captivity, the repatriation of the remains of those who died bravely in defense of liberty, and full accounting of those missing. Let us rededicate ourselves to this vital endeavor.
Please remain standing and bow your heads for the prayer. Dear Lord, I pray that all goes smooth today. Thank you for allowing us to be here. It is a great honor, and I love you. Please let all the bills go smoothly, be passed or failed. And just remember, we are all here for the experience, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Lastly, please join me in the Boys State Creed. American citizenship is my most precious possession. I believe in the constitutional form of government of the United States of America, which guarantees me the right to worship God as I choose, and as a citizen, equal opportunity to enjoy educational rights. It is my obligation to participate in and contribute to civic and political community, state, and nation. I resolve to learn and understand the civic needs of government and my community. I hereby dedicate myself to the task of inspiring and maintaining a like interest in my fellow citizens, young and old. May the memory and experience of Boys State be ever with me as a constant reminder of my obligation to my country. You may be seated. All right, gentlemen, we did it. We're here at Carson City. All the hard work, dedication, resilience, and perseverance to get here paid off. Without those traits, we would not have been able to go through this week. Staying up late, not getting any sleep, learning how to remember different legislation bills, remembering certain ways of doing committee, interacting with people who you may not agree with. All of that are valuable experiences that have gotten us here. So there's one thing I want you to take away from my speech here. It's that I challenge everyone to soak this in, to look around the room, realize that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and that we're never going to be able to do this again. So to live in the moment and not go through the motions, and then it's the end of the day and realize we didn't get to really enjoy this opportunity. So one thing I wanted to point out is just the overall potential in this room, which I don't think was previously mentioned enough. There's so much future of our nation, of our state in this room. We have future politicians, future military leaders, performers, and just overall outstanding citizens who will contribute to the civil and political welfare of our community, state, and nation. And yes, I took that from the Boys' Creed. So this week, the only few days, although it seems like almost months that we've been here, we've developed skills that we will carry on for the rest of our lives. We've developed relationships, ideas, and friendships that in every minute and every moment will be with us. So I want us to all cherish that and just hang on to that because I think that's extremely important on top of the lessons we've learned from this week. So I'd like to take this time to also thank everyone who voted for all the positions, who worked hard to run for those positions. It takes a lot of bravery and courage and risk to run for those positions, and congratulations to everyone who got those and accomplished that. And to those who ran for positions and did not get those positions, I still want to applaud you because as we heard in Justin's speech, lots of times there is failure, but that's what builds us as people. And as you heard with Abraham Lincoln, the amount of times he failed and then ended up being one of the most famous presidents in our nation, just shows how important resilience is. So truly hang on to that. I want to remind you that you did vote me in, and I know it was only by one vote, so half of you most likely didn't. But I want to let you know that I won't let you down, and that I won't fail you as governor. I think we can all work together and get a lot of stuff done. And then also thanking our great counselors for just guiding us, encouraging us, teaching us everything we could possibly soak in this little time. I think not only have we all made impacts in our own lives, but they've made impacts in our lives. So just thank you guys for having your time and being here as well. So we'll get to the point, but I'm super excited to see what bills come, to see the compromise between both parties, and see just everyone working together. Let's pass some legislation and overall make better the lives of our fellow Nevadans, theoretically. And so I'm also excited for the mayoral debates. I know each mayor will represent their city well and bring forth some great points. So definitely excited for that. Lastly, just enjoy this process and learn everything you can about it, right? We've kind of learned what to do, and this is kind of our trial, our chance to learn in action what this is really like. So hang on to that. So this is our system. This is democracy. And with that, let's continue to our long-awaited Carson City Day. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes to get organized, and we will begin the assembly meeting. We have about 17 bills on our agenda to handle today. I want to make sure that the expectations are clear, that we thoroughly discuss these bills. We make sure everybody's voting for what they believe in. Please participate in the group discussion. That'll be all. We will be taking roll call soon, and then we will get right into the agenda. Okay, everybody, before we commence the meeting, I just want to make sure that we all have access to the legislative docket because the body of the bills that we're going over today are not going to be displayed on the overhead monitors. So please pull up the legislative docket. If you do not believe you have access to it, please talk to our secretary right here, Preston, and he will help you out with that. Please, if you need access to the legislative docket, come up to our secretary, Preston, write down your email, and we will add you to that document. Please make sure your handwriting is legible so we don't make any mistakes. Thank you. We will commence the assembly meeting in a few minutes. One more item before we get started. I just want to suggest that everybody has the delegate manual with all of the parliamentary procedures, that page on them, so we know exactly what you have to say if you'd like to make a motion in this committee. Thank you. If you would like to call our page, that's Jack over there. I believe there's a button on your control panel.
Alrighty, so I just finished sending out all the emails to everyone, so let me know if you did not get the email for the legislative list.
Just verbally, can everybody tell me if they've received the legislative docket? It should be in your email. Okay, if you have not gotten the legislative docket, please raise your hand and Preston will handle that. Okay, just please step up again. Okay, I believe all the issues with the legislative docket have been resolved. So at this point, as the speaker, I will suggest we move for a call of the assembly. For this motion to pass, we need a suggestion second and third. So if anybody would like to make that motion, please go ahead. Once again, as the speaker, I will remind you that I am not entitled to making motions, but if we would like to begin the meeting, then one person could just say, I move to call the assembly. We would need a second and third, and then you can go ahead and do that. I'll unmute your mic. Yes, Assemblyman O'Neill?
I move to call the assembly.
Assemblyman Gorlow? Assemblyman Cohen, I'm sorry.
I third that.
Okay. The motion is, actually we need a majority vote before we start that. All in favor of commencing the assembly, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Okay, very well. The motion has been passed. We will call roll, and we will start with the first item on our agenda. I will ask the clerk to call roll of all the assemblymen in the committee.
Alrighty, let's start roll call. Is Assemblyman Brody Hendrick here? Justin Paul Abernerhall? Andrew Davis? Elijah Mitchell? Sorry, Isaiah. Daniel Labate? Matthew Martinez? Bobby Simpson? Pedro Tapai Zamora? Thank you. Alejandro Guadamera Torres? Johnny Paris? Wusan Yu? Speaker, everyone is present today.
Okay, it appears all of our assemblymen are present today. So we will begin with the first item on the agenda in 1 moment. Okay, the first piece of legislation we will be looking at today is Bill 4. Can we go ahead and pull that up on the screen? Okay, our clerk will read the bill summary, and then discussion will be open. If you would like to speak, please request to unmute your mic, address me as the speaker, and you will be allowed to talk at my discretion.
This is Bill 4, Early Childhood Education Development Act.
There is no bill summary on this, but once again, discussion is open. If you'd like to speak, please request to unmute your microphone and address the speaker. Thank you. Assemblyman Cohen.
I think the bill is.
Please address me as Mr. Speaker, and then you can stand and say, or not stand. You can just say whatever you'd like to say over the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the bill is very vague. I think there should be a lot more to the bill, like exactly what type of classes those will be, because at age 3, that's like a very early age, and I feel like it is important to get ahead on education, but I think it just should be a little more specific. Thank you.
Once again, discussion is open. If you'd like to speak, please. Yeah, okay. Assemblyman Mitchell, you are free to talk.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with Alejandro in the sense that the bill is somewhat very vague, and also in the sense that preschool is already acceptable for ages 3 to 5, and that is offered free in CCSD. I'm not necessarily sure if that's applicable to all around of Nevada. However, I know that in CCSD it pretty much is. So the entirety of this bill is just not necessarily valuable. Thank you.
Assemblyman Paris, you are free to speak.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with both gentlemen. It is very vague, and another issue is that it says free transportation and free education. There's going to be probably issues in employment because we can't really just give free education without any type of government funding or anything like that. And the transportation will be difficult as Nevada already has issues on school transportations.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if I've been saying the wrong last names. I've actually been looking at the screen over here, which has other names on them. Yes, we have a request to speak from Assemblyman Zamora, and then we will be moving on to, we have a request to speak from Minority Leader Andrew Davison. He has priority, and we will then be moving on for a comment from Assemblyman Zamora.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. It is very vague, and free education is already provided. It's a right that we have already, and the free transportation is very vague. It doesn't say the method, and I feel like this bill just doesn't have enough substance to have a place in this legislation. That's all.
And then we have a comment from Assemblyman Zamora. You are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that this bill is also very vague and not substantial. I think one big issue with this bill is the fact that there's no funding for it, especially considering that that this bill provides free education and free transportation, yet it does not list any way, shape, or form that we will be able to gain any profit off it for future development of these free classes for students. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I think there is a pretty unanimous agreement that there's not enough substantial substance in this bill to warrant passing it. So it is the recommendation of the speaker at this point that we submit a motion to vote on the bill. We have one quick comment from O'Neill. Sorry, not O'Neill, Davidson.
I move to previous question.
Okay, we have made a motion to move to previous question. One reminder, moving to previous question means that we will be voting on this bill. In order to do that, we need a first, second, and third. If anybody would like to second, please request it, and I will grant you those speaking privileges. Assemblyman Ebinoha. Assemblyman Labaya. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Assemblyman Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I third the motion.
And we had a request from Assemblyman Paris. Oh, really? No. Okay. Then we had one from Majority Leader Assemblyman Mitchell.
Mr. Speaker, I third the motion as well.
Okay, very well. We will have a vote on the motion. Is there any debate before we commence this vote? Okay, very well. This vote will be commenced. All in favor of this bill, please raise your hand and say aye. You don't have to do this over the microphone. Okay, actually, we do have a voting system over here. I was not aware of that. So just please select your vote on your control panel, and I will announce the results. If you would not like to vote, please abstain. Is there an opinion from Assemblyman Simpson? Okay, very well, the votes have been submitted. We have 11 nay, 0 in favor. As the speaker, I will abstain from voting on this bill. This bill has failed. We will be moving on to the next item on the agenda, Bill 6. Okay, our clerk Preston will be reading that right now.
Enact to increase the safety measures on the obtaining of firearms in the state of Nevada. This is Bill 6.
Discussion is now open. If you have anything to say about the bill, please request to speak and address the speaker. Thank you. We have a request to speak from Minority Leader Davidson. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. In this bill, it states that gun owners will be required to have a mental health check by a licensed mental health professional, which keeps firearms out of the hands of people that are potentially dangerous to themselves and the public, with a reasonable fine of $1,000, which is that of a misdemeanor, and a completion of 15 service hours, which I believe is a good alternative to jail time, because service hours, community service is proven by several studies to reduce the rate of second-time offenders.
Thank you, Assemblyman Davison. We have a request to speak from Assemblyman Paris. You can go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. In section 3, it says all firearm owners must return to a license. That was section 2. All gun owners must complete and obtain a hunter safety license in order to obtain a firearm. This is actually a great idea to actually clear intentions of the reason why the gun owner wants to own a fire weapon, as well as really clearing all reasons for the safety of the people.
Okay, very well. We have 3 more requests to speak. I will go first with Assemblyman Zamora. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to rise in support of this bill. I believe that it covers all fronts. It covers everything that this bill should represent. I believe it's very safe and honorable. I believe it's a great alternative to prevent the violence and mass shootings that we have been seeing recently. Additionally, I would like to add on to the previous comment that someone made, that Section 4 with the fine and or the mandatory community hours are a very good alternative versus jailing them. Thank you very much.
We have a comment from Assemblyman Ebenoha, and then we will be moving on to Assemblyman Martinez. Assemblyman Ebenoha, you are free to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. In Section 3, it states that all firearm owners must return to a licensed mental professional on a biannual schedule in order to maintain a legal jurisdiction over any owned firearms. I'm in support of this bill because this section allows gun owners to be able to, they're able to basically prove over time that they are still mentally, healthy enough to be able to handle firearms, and this would create a better, in a sense, better safety for people around them and themselves as well. Thank you.
Okay, and finally we have another comment from Assemblyman Martinez. You are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. In Section 2, it says all potential gun owners must complete and obtain a hunter safety license in order to obtain a firearm. However, not all firearms are used for hunting purposes. Some are used just for self-defense, such as smaller handguns. That's all.
Okay, we just had 4 requests to speak queued, so we will begin with, since we have Majority Leader Isaiah Mitchell request to speak, we'll be moving on to Minority Leader Andrew Davison, and then I will decide the order after that.
All right, so when it comes to this bill, I do think that the mental health checks are very valuable. However, I'm not sure if we are going to acknowledge the typo. However, it says in Section 4, violation of Section 4. By that, I think it means Section 3. So I'm not sure if we are just going to count that as Section 3, because what I'm guessing about what it's saying in Section 4 is if they violate by not coming back to get their license renewed for mental health, then they would get the fine and they would get the 15 community service hours. So if we are going to just analyze the bill based on what it's saying, I think I would say that I'm in opposition of this bill.
Before we move on to Minority Leader Davison, I know that the general purpose of this committee was not to make amendments to bills, but as the speaker, I might suggest that we make minor amendments for small typo issues like this, if time allows. Okay. Anyways, we'll be moving on to Minority Leader Andrew Davison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. As another assembly member stated, the hunter safety license in order to obtain a firearm, not all firearms are used for hunting purposes, which is true. However, it does teach, like I have my hunter certification, my hunter safety certification, and it does teach about all kinds of firearms and their safety and simple range safety, including things like knowing what is in front of and beyond the target that you're shooting at to ensure even guns that are used in self-defense cases, gun owners are made aware of safety issues when they are trying to defend themselves. This will also reduce the frequency and risk of accidental firearm-related injuries. Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Assemblyman Simpson. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. As Mr. Davidson said, the hunter safety course does provide a lot of insight of using a firearm. I believe it does, create safety, and it really teaches people, values and what to look out for when using firearms. Another thing I would like to bring out, mental health checks I believe it will suppress the amount of mass shootings going on. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Assemblyman Torres, and then we will be moving on to Assemblyman Zamora. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it was actually my committee that passed this bill, and we had all agreed that in Section 3, it doesn't specify what happens if it does specify what happens if you miss your biannual schedule, if you miss your appointment, I mean. But what if it was like just like you were just like you couldn't make it that day, but you could have made it like the next day? It just says straight out if you miss it. We had only passed it because we had amended it, but this is not the amended version. And I think that I don't think that this version would have passed in our committee.
Quick request for information. You're saying this is the unamended version of the legislation that was passed in your committee?
Yes.
Okay. The chairman suggests that we call for a recess of 3 minutes. I'd like to do some research to see if we can find the amended version of the bill if this is not the correct one. Does anybody second that? I'm sorry, I am not, as the chairman, or as the Speaker of the House, I am not allowed to make motions, but if anybody would like to make that motion, please feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I motion for a recess of 5 minutes.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor of a 5-minute recess or okay, all in favor of a 5-minute recess, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Okay, very well. We will have a 5-minute recess. We will return to session at 10:45 a.m. It is 10:45 a.m. The assembly is officially reconvened, although we have a few administrative issues right now. We're trying to distribute a new copy of the legislature because we've just been informed that the spreadsheet is a little outdated, so you will be receiving that in your email in a few seconds. Thank you. I believe this is going to take about 5 more minutes, so at this point the speaker is suggesting that we move for an extended recess of an additional 5 minutes. Please just go ahead and use open mic if you'd
I
like to
second
first.
that.
Okay. The motion actually has not been made yet, so you have
Okay.
to make the motion.
So motion to extend the recess by 5 minutes.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Do we have a third? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. The recess will be extended by 5 minutes. We will reconvene at 10:52 a.m. Thank you.
So the Word document for the updated assembly bills has been sent out. So if you did not receive the bill, just come up and let me know, and we'll fix the problem.
From now on, we will be using the Google Doc to look at our legislation because those have the updated versions of all the legislation. The spreadsheet is outdated. Yes, we have a comment from Assemblyman Zamora.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if we can gain access to that Google Doc?
It should have been sent out in your email. If there's a problem, please talk to our secretary, Preston.
Alrighty, has everyone received the email regarding the updated Google Docs sheet? Just give me a thumbs up if you've received it. Alrighty, thank you guys.
It is now 10:52 a.m. We will resume the assembly. One more thing before we start, I just want to make it clear. When you're looking at the legislation, please from now on use the Google Doc that has all the updated legislatures in there. The spreadsheet is outdated. Some of the bills don't have revisions. For the sake of integrity, we will be going back to our first bill that we did in this committee. We have Bill 4, talking about education. We're just going to redo that really quick so we can look at the revised version.
So this is Bill 4, Early Childhood Education and Development Act.
If you are having trouble, finding the bill in here, just press Control F. That'll open an internal search in the Google Doc, and you can find whatever phrase you're looking for. So just type in Bill 4 after you press Control F. Discussion is now open. I'm sorry, I didn't see that we had a comment from Minority Leader Davison, so you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. It seems a revision has been made in Section 1 that says all children ages 2 to 5 in counties with school districts of 5,000 plus enrolled students. Age 2 is simply way too young for any student to be in a school. I mean, many daycares are open that are private and for profit, but it comes with the added burden of taking care of toddlers and other things like that. And I think it is not the state's place to say that all children should be, like toddlers, should be in a school when they should be, in my opinion, at a daycare that is for profit, so they have better funding and things of that for care of the children, as well as, sorry, that's all.
Okay, we have a comment from Assemblyman Zamora, and then we'll be moving on to Assemblyman Martinez for our second comment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Comparing this amended version to the previous version, you can tell that there has been a lot more improvement with the amended version. I believe the bill is now passable for, compared to the previous version. So I would like to say I rise in support of this bill. I believe that all the sections provide great explanations to what they're trying to do. Section 4, I believe, is also pretty good. I'm not sure about the numbers, but I believe that tax rise isn't significant enough for people making that amount of income to complain and have an uprise. Thank you very much.
Before we move on with the discussion, as the chairman, I'd like to make a quick comment. In my opinion, I think Section 1 has a few problems with it. It specifies children aged 2 through 5, which is something that Minority Leader Davison brought up. He essentially said that, yes, children ages 2 to 5 are too young to be enrolled in school, I agree with that assessment. At this point, I would say that it essentially makes it a free daycare service for school districts, which ordinarily I wouldn't have a problem with, but I'm doubtful that the 1% tax increase in Section 4 would be significant enough to fund a free daycare program for all parents in significant school districts. Okay, we have, as the minority leader, Mr. Davison has priority for another comment. We will then be moving on to Assemblyman Martinez, then to Assemblyman Ebenoja, and then finally to Assemblyman Paris. Mr. Davison, you're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill for the reasons you stated. The tax increase is insignificant at best and will definitely not cover statewide, practically daycare centers funded. And if you look in Section 4, it says increase taxes on those making the numbers, whatever. It doesn't say that that will directly be funded by that. It just says it increase taxes, and I think that's just a major flaw in this. It increases taxes without explicitly stating that the funds from these taxes will be granted to this bill. And for those reasons, I do not think this bill should pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Davison. Okay, we have another request to speak from Majority Leader Mitchell. As Majority Leader, you have priority. You are free to speak.
I agree with Mr. Davidson, mainly in the sense that when it's talking about school districts that are that have 5,000 plus enrolled students, that's neglecting many other school districts, such as like Churchill, Eureka, Humboldt County, and like a few other more. And I feel like if that's the case, then it should be reversed. If there isn't enough school district systems in place in order to take care of children, even if they were going to go to preschool when they were 2, then it should be focused more on school districts with less population, which is why I'm in opposition to this bill.
Thank you, Assemblyman Mitchell. We have a comment from Assemblyman Martinez. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, as well, rise in opposition to this bill. I believe that there's already a current shortage of bus drivers, that now having to provide having to have extra transportation for these children is going to be impossible with there being a already current shortage of bus drivers.
I agree, Assemblyman Martinez, but we have another comment from Assemblyman Ebenoja. You are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. I would just like to point out another flaw that I found in this bill, which is in Section 3, where it says free transportation will be provided for all children by means of district and through bus transportation. The children in question are children ages 2 to 5, and I believe that that is too young to be able to drop off at a bus stop and have them ride a bus. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ebenoja. We will go on to Assemblyman Paris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. The taxation on people who make more than 200,000 per person or however, that actually is enough money. With 1.13 million households in Las Vegas, 12% of them make more than 200,000 a year. That and 1% of only that 200,000 actually is 2,000 per household. So that makes about a few million for a lot of districts. And the million is $2 million, at least $2 million. So I think the funding for this is enough for the program that this bill is provisioning.
Okay, thank you, Assemblyman Paris. We'll move on to Assemblyman Zamora. You're free to speak.
After some of the comments some of my fellow gentlemen have made, I would like to motion to begin voting on this bill.
In that case, you would just say motion to previous question. So we need a second and a third for that to pass. You don't have to request to speak. Just go ahead, turn on your microphone, say I second, I third.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Okay, is there any debate? Any further debate? No one is heard? Okay, very well. We'll commence voting on the bill. All in favor, please vote on your control panel. And all dissenting opinions, go ahead, press nay. If you'd like to abstain, click the yellow button. Okay, I believe that concludes the voting. We have 3 in favor, 9 against, and no abstaining votes. As a result, this bill is now failed. Okay, we'll be moving on to the next item in the agenda. We'll be going back to the revised version of, sorry, give me one moment. Okay, we'll be returning to the revised version on the Google Doc of Bill 6. Discussion is now open. Our clerk will go ahead and read the act summary as well.
So this is Assembly Bill number 6, a bill to increase the safety measures on the taming of firearms in the state of Nevada.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that we had 2 requests to speak. First comment we have from Minority Leader Assemblyman Davison. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I believe that the amendments that were made to this bill in the updated version quell a lot of the concerns we had the first go-around, including for first-time buyers, the mental health check can be valid within 2 weeks. I think this is a reasonable time constraint, so after seeing a medical professional, you have a short but reasonable window of time to obtain the firearm if you so choose, which reduces the chance that someone will have a mental health crisis between the mental health check and obtaining the firearm. Secondly, the amendments made to Section 4, correcting the typo, and thirdly, in Section 3, it says if a gun owner misses their biennial mental check, they must reschedule within a week or risk suspension of their gun license. This allows again, a reasonable but still safe expectation that people will get their mental health check renewed again, and this keeps firearms out of the hands of people with mental problems that put themselves and others at a higher risk, while also giving responsible gun owners a reasonable window of time, a reasonable window of time to reschedule if they miss without penalty. Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Assemblyman Paris. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. The amendments made on this bill, like he said, it clears all concerns. I also would like to talk about section 2, where it says, where it explains what exactly a hunter safety course exactly does, and it specifies what someone should do in that section. So I rise in support of this bill.
Thank you, Assemblyman Paris. We'll move on to Assemblyman Zamora.
Thank you. I would like to agree with Mr. Davison on his assessment. I believe the bill has been amended perfectly here, but I do have one question. Although we cannot amend, my concern is whether it's in section 1, it's whether this mandatory, in-depth, and in-person psychiatric mental health check would be charged upon the person purchasing this firearm, or if it will be free. That is my only concern. Besides that, I rise in support of this bill.
As the speaker, I'd like to make a comment. This is just my speculation about the bill, but I would assume that the psychiatric mental health check would probably have to be paid by the person purchasing the firearm. Is there any more discussion about this legislation? Yes, Assemblyman Paris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I motion to previous question.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
Second.
Do we have a third?
I third that.
Okay, is there any more debate before we vote on this bill? Very well, we will move to vote on the bill. Please select your votes on the control panel. Okay, it appears all the votes have been submitted. We have 10 in favor and 2 dissenting. Therefore, this bill will be passed. We'll be moving on to the next item of the agenda. The next bill we're going to be looking at is Bill 8.
This is Assembly Bill number 8. An act mandates all high school schools to provide all 18-year-olds who attend high school the same proper help as to anyone under the age of 18 in high school.
Discussion is now open. We have a comment from Assemblyman Zamora. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe this bill is a bit odd, especially my biggest concern is the fact that nowhere here besides section 6 is it stated that where the funding will be coming from, especially considering that many high school students who enter senior year are 18 years old, either near the beginning of the school year or at the end. Thus, it would be a lot to provide a lot of the things listed here without proper funding. I believe also in section 3, I do not know. I think that's the biggest concern on where the funding will come for that. Besides that, thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to have a... Oh, okay. The majority leader just requested to speak, so we will have a comment from Assemblyman Mitchell, and then we'll move on to Assemblyman Paris.
I agree with the previous statement. What I do feel like somewhat contradicts this bill is that in the beginning it starts off with saying that the school district is going to provide for the 18-year-olds. However, towards the end of Section 6, while it does say where the funding is going to come from, it says it will go it will be funded by school fundraisers. So in that essence, you're having schools that might not necessarily have many 18-year-olds that need assistance, that are going to be catering to different high schools that have a lot more 18-year-olds that need this assistance. So it's kind of like this disproportional sense of funding that I feel like could go into something better. So.
Thank you, Majority Leader Mitchell. We'll be moving on to a comment from Assemblyman Paris. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. Reason for is that the concerns of the funding, this was passed in my committee, by the way. In Section 6, it says schools will fund products, which clarifies numbers, Section 3. Schools will fund products, that means school funds will go into those products. There is no programs or any institution that requires money here. Only thing that might require money is the basic necessities of those 18-year-olds. And as another concern, I do agree this bill is a little odd. It jumps with different discontinuities, and it's very blank.
Okay, I was going to move on to Assemblyman Hendrick, but first we have a comment from Minority Leader Andrew Davison. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. It seems that everyone has a consensus that this bill is a little bit strange and has some issues in the formatting, or not formatting necessarily, but the wording. And I think it's necessary to understand that bills that get passed in legislation they're not open to interpretation, and they're not very broad. So I think it's just important to understand the necessity that the bills are specific and have a lot of detail that go into them, so that there aren't any loopholes or up for interpretation, because bills like these do end up harmful for some people because just the looseness of them, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader Davison. We have a comment from Assemblyman Hendrick. You are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition of this bill. I do agree that this bill does seem very strange and is not specific in some manners, but I do believe that the responsibility of taking care of the kids in this manner, of providing for them, should not fall on the schools. I also believe that the funding part, while it will bring in money, I do not believe that for some schools who are already struggling with a lot of money, that they will be able to provide for all the kids who need that help.
Thank you, Assemblyman Hendrick. We have the next comment from Assemblyman Labaya. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am also in opposition of this bill due to the fact that there are many 18-year-olds in the state of Nevada that are able to apply for jobs. While they may not pay very much, the opportunity to make money exists. Therefore, I do not support this bill.
Next we have, the Minority Leader just requested to make another comment. As he is priority, we will have another comment from Minority Leader Davison. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. Like it was just stated, this bill does discourage 18-year-olds in school districts from obtaining jobs and providing more to the economy, and it does further burden the school district to provide for those individuals, as well as the fact that it does, to a certain extent, encourage kind of broken households, and also because it just shows that they will be provided for, giving nothing back, and being provided for at the expense of nothing is just not something that should be taught at such a young age to people entering the workforce. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a comment from Assemblyman Martinez. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to previous question.
Okay, very well. We need a second and a third for that.
I second.
Is there any debate before we vote on the bill? This is your last opportunity to make a comment. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wasn't sure if this request was made before we moved on. But yes, we have a comment from Assemblyman Yu before we move on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. I believe that the funding from school fundraisers are unreliable, and I believe that it requires a more proper funding than school fundraisers.
Thank you. We have another comment from Assemblyman Torres. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill because I was also going to say that I don't think school fundraisers are going to make enough money, and this bill says that it's going to have to pay for clothes, toiletries, blankets, or sleeping bags, and that's just the examples. Like the school might be forced to provide even more, and on top of that, damn, I forgot my point. But yeah, basically, I feel like it's too much for the school. Oh yeah, because in the event where the school does waste all of the money from the fundraisers, it'll inevitably have to use its money that it would usually use on the education of students.
Thank you. We have another comment from Assemblyman Simpson. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition of this bill. To point out, Nevada does have a independent living services, so I don't think it should be brought up in the school, especially because we have that service. The service does continue until the age of 21, so I'd just like to bring that up. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more comments, we'll commence the vote. This is your last opportunity for debate. Very well, we will move on with the motion to vote on this bill. Okay, I believe we have a unanimous decision. All 12 dissenting opinions, we have 12 nays. Therefore, this legislation will be failed. Before we move on to the next item of the agenda, I was just informed by the page, Jack, that we will be having lunch at 11:50. So I'd like to get through at least one more bill, possibly two, but we have plenty of time, so we can take our time on that. Yeah, let's move on to the next item of the agenda. Sorry, give me one moment. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Bill 16. Our clerk will read the bill summary, and then discussion will be open.
This is Assembly Bill number 16. An act provisions will be set to support firearm and range safety courses and be mandated to receive a high school diploma.
Discussion is now open. Yeah, we have a comment from Minority Leader Andrew Davison. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. This bill encourages firearm safety from schools, which will kind of keep guns out of the hands of people that learned from other people that don't handle guns properly. For example, children often learn how to handle firearms from adults in their lives, and many of these adults are careless with their firearms, which leads to many accidents. And I believe this bill will put these children's education on firearms, which is a large part of our country. So I think it is important to be educated on. It puts this education in the hands of professionals that will encourage safety. And in section 2, it states effective with the 2027 to 28 school year. So this leaves school districts with plenty of freedom to institute these range safety classes in their school districts if they so choose in high school without interfering with those that are currently in high school. Thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Assemblyman Paris. You're free to speak.
I fully agree. We do need this type of thing. It ensures safety even for the young people. But I rise in opposition to this bill for 2 reasons. I said, in order to receive a standard high school diploma, you are regulated to, as a criteria to take this. This kind of goes against some religions that don't want their children near weapons or any type of thing like that, or not even religion, parents that don't even want their child near or even introduced with this type of thing. As well as there is no specific funding for this, or maybe, no, I don't see funding for these courses. So, thank you.
Okay, we have a comment from Majority Leader Mitchell. You're free to speak.
All right, so ultimately, before we continue debating about this topic, I was wondering if I could get a point of information. In Section 3, it talks about NRS 390.600, specifically Section 2A, and since Minority Leader Mr. Davidson wrote this bill, I was wondering if you could give some information about this at any time. I yield my time.
Okay, that is a request for information. We're going to put further comments on hold while Mr. Davison clarifies Assemblyman Mitchell's comments. Okay, Minority Leader Davison, you are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak on a few of the exceptions that are outlined in the NRS. This states that any pupils with disabilities that would prevent them from taking and completing this course are exempt from it, and therefore this wouldn't be in any way discriminatory to anybody that has a disability that would prevent them from firearm safety courses, and they can still receive their diploma without it if they are not in a position to obtain that certification. Thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader Davis. We have another comment from Assemblyman Torres. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill because gun safety courses, they already exist. And instead of paying for having to bring another professional in to teach and like having to use a whole nother classroom, and like on top of that you need to make sure you actually have to shoot the gun, so you need ammunition, you need guns. And I don't think it's a good idea to put guns in the hands of minors because for example, any boxer will tell you that once they learn how to box, once they learn how to fight, they just become more motivated to get into fights. And I think that is not the correct age to be, it's such a delicate developmental time in their lives, and I don't think it's a good idea to do it at this time. And on top of that, instead of paying for a whole course, like designing a whole curriculum, doing all this, paying for the guns, handing them to the minors, I think instead what they should be doing is incentivizing seniors who are about to graduate to get into gun safety courses and basically using the money that they were going to use for the classes for incentives to go to gun safety courses. Thank you.
Okay, we have another comment from Minority Leader Davison. You are free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill for the reason that the school district, especially Clark County School District, spends a lot of its money on other arbitrary things that are not nearly as vital to the safety of the public and our citizens. And secondly, I would like to point out that at Veterans Tribute, it's a school that both Mr. Torres and I attend. Our firearm safety course was just a small part of the curriculum, and we weren't given any live ammunition or real firearms, but we were still told about the working parts of the gun, things not to do, things to do, like pointing the gun downrange at all times. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Davison. We have a comment from Assemblyman Zamora. You're free to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a few comments I would like to make. For one, I believe the intent and the essence of this bill is good in nature, yet the execution is it wasn't executed well. For one, I believe there are already some firearm and range safety courses in classes such as JROTC in high schools, which is accessible in most public high schools to today. Additionally, while I believe that this bill is trying to prevent more gun violence in schools, I think at the end of the day, it contradicts that, because once you put a gun in someone's hands, as Mr. Torres was stating, they would only be encouraged more to want to pursue that. So I believe it's only encouraging students to continue a path of wanting to just have their lives embedded within guns, which could lead to a path of violence or not. It's very hard to say, but I believe that I'm going to be in opposition of this bill. Additionally, the funding's another issue, I believe. I also don't think this should be a required course, as I think I believe most students wouldn't want to take this course to begin with. And if it's a required course, it would have to be in a way where I would like more specificity, such as I know right now in high schools, PE is required for the first 2 years of high school. So would this class be required for either freshman year, senior year, junior year, or even sophomore year? That's my question. Additionally, the funding's another issue. But I do agree with Davison in the way that some electives do have money poured into them more than actual important classes. Thank you very much.
If you would like to request information from Mr. Davison, you can go ahead and do so. But if you do not, we have a comment from Majority Leader Mitchell, and then we will move back on to Minority Leader Davison, as they both have priority.
So, as the previous response stated, some people might not feel comfortable taking this course, whether that be religious or ideological reasons. And also in Section 3, or wait, no, not Section 3. I believe it is, it is in Section 1. It talks about the standard high school diploma. So I feel like if this bill was going to be institutionalized and be required, it would just be a filler class for people who are trying to graduate with a standard diploma, because there's also like advanced honors, college and career readiness diplomas that I don't think that this bill took in account for, which is why I'm in opposition to this bill.
Mr. Davison, if you'd like to respond to that, you now have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this bill because there are many exceptions to people that have issues with this bill. Under the NRS exceptions, it provides an exception if a pupil is to take a supplementary course. So if they are not comfortable with taking the course and being around firearms, they are allowed to take a course otherwise, so they won't have to be around that. This also includes religious exemption for those that are religious and don't want to be around these firearms. They don't have to be. Secondly, this isn't a whole entire class. It's a small part of a large course. Like, again, I go to a school that has a firearm safety small course, and it took us approximately 3 weeks to get through everything at most, and that's with 2 to 3 classes a week. So I think the safety and education that this provides on such a large part of being an American citizen, is the pros outweigh the cons by a lot, and someone said it would lead them on a path of violence. There are many more people that are upstanding citizens and only use their weapons in self-defense and recreational use and don't have violent tendencies that would be taking this course, right? And in addition to that, while it may, in the very, very small chance that a violent person is using this for alternative motives, there's education for those that are trying to defend themselves, and that just puts everyone in a much safer position because the majority of people are not out to hurt others, but this would let those people be educated on how to reduce accidents and be able to defend themselves from the small minority of people that are violent. Thank you.
That was very well spoken, Mr. Davison. Thank you very much for that. We have another comment from Majority Leader Mitchell. Please go ahead.
One thing that I would also like to state is I wouldn't necessarily say the vagueness of this bill, but also somewhat of the invalidity in the sense that we're all not necessarily well versed in NRS 390.600, especially 2A. So ultimately, for all we know, that some of these exceptions that could be made are maybe not even be a part of that bill. May not even be a part of that bill. And also, once again, I would be acceptable of this bill if it said that it was not necessarily required. However, since it says it's required, I don't necessarily think that having an elective or a class that's required in school, which we mainly come in order to learn about like different fields, whether that be arts, whether that be histories, I don't necessarily think that this fits into somewhat of a school platform or a school environment.
Before we have another comment from and thank you, also very well worded, Mr. Mitchell, but before we have another comment from Mr. Davison, I'd just like to clarify to the Legislative Assembly that if you are unclear about a subsection of the Nevada Revised Statute, you are free to look that up right now and do independent research. You can form your own opinion. We have another comment from Mr. Davison. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. Again, these exceptions are written into this, and I've looked into it, and it is up to you guys to look up these exceptions and make a well-informed decision for yourselves. But I do believe this bill is paramount to the safety of our public and our children, as well as the fact that there are programs, like it was previously stated, there are programs like JROTC that do range safety courses and things of this nature. However, I know at my school there are fees associated with this, and also the fact that there are fees associated with this, so it might take away from the fact that only those that are affluent enough to be able to pay those fees and whatnot are able to access firearm safety, which I don't think is very equitable. Secondly, it was mentioned that the standard high school diploma, those that are trying to get an honors diploma or career and college readiness diploma, it would just be a filler class. I think we take many classes that we won't use in day-to-day life, but I think this is a matter of public safety, and if we have these courses, it will just educate people and reduce firearm accidents, which are the majority of firearm deaths and are the most preventable. And secondly, those that are trying to take a CCR or advanced honors, those diplomas already require the requirements of a standard diploma, so this does not exclude them from that. However, like it was stated before, they can take a supplementary class if they don't feel comfortable with it. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on to Assemblyman Martinez, I had a quick question for Minority Leader Davison. My question was, is this just for a standard high school diploma? I was a little unclear about this in your response. Is this just a standard high school diploma, or if you want to achieve a higher diploma, are you also required to take this course, for example, an advanced honors diploma?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your question. I think it's very important that we understand that for advanced honors diplomas, you have to have the requirements already for the standard diploma, so this would fall under that category, and nobody will be exempt unless they have a disability that would prevent them, or they take a supplementary class, which they can do if they choose. So nobody would be forced, and everybody that receives a high school diploma will have to go through this course, which promotes public safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davison. We now have a comment from Assemblyman Martinez. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I believe that it is valuable to take into consideration that even though previously stated that after taking this safety class, that children might want to pursue guns more or learn more about it. They already have after they have obviously passed the class, they already have an understanding of the safety and the basic safety of how to use a firearm. So I think it is valuable that we understand that their pursuit of firearms may not come from a violent manner, but overall just a genuine interest in it. And even if they do pursue it, they will be doing it with a safe manner, already having taken a class on firearm safety.
Yes, I agree with the interest point, Mr. Martinez, but we also have another comment from Majority Leader Mitchell again. You're free to speak.
All right, so after reading over NRS 390-600, just in case if anyone needs any clarification, so the majority of what is being stated here is, even though I can't find any stuff in regards to disability or religion, it's talking more in the sense of like, they can't take these classes, or they don't have to take these classes if there is such like a language barrier. It's talking about English, it's talking about math, classes they don't need to take if they already have the credits. So if we want to compare the NRS 390-600 to something as what is common in schools, such as English, math, science, if we want to compare those to something as extreme in a school circumstance or a school environment, such as a gun safety course, in making that required, along with the loophole of it being only required in a standard diploma, I just think that this bill, it just doesn't necessarily take into consideration for, it doesn't really uphold its sense of it being required, and also it's just, I don't know, I just feel like the certification, while NRS 339 or whatever the NRS is, it might seem like a good, credible source. It just doesn't necessarily align with the gun safety course that is being proposed here.
Thank you. Before we have another comment from Mr. Davison, just so the entire legislative committee is aware, I did look up the NRS 3090.600 statute. I believe the clause that Mr. Davison is referring to is the subsection of the Nevada Revised Statute, subsection 4, where it states they are exempt from these requirements if they have a significant cognitive disability or participate in an alternative assessment prescribed by the state board. This is just an assumption. Mr. Davison will have to clarify this, but I believe that this will be up to the state board. Mr. Davison, if you'd like to make a comment, go ahead.
That is just a typo. I apologize for that, but it's a simple correction, and I think it's not fair to say that firearm safety has no place in schools, because the point of school is to prepare American children to become citizens of their country and responsible citizens, safe citizens, people that keep their fellow citizens safe, and this would do exactly that. We are educating people about their right, and this right is this Second Amendment right is particularly touchy because it does have the ability to take life, but I do believe that, well, I mean, statistically, in the majority of cases, it does save lives. And secondly, preparing our children to be students also requires them to have like real life knowledge. Many of us would agree that students should be taught about like taxes and things like that that are part of everyday citizenship, and firearms are a part of everyday citizenship. They are our rights that are they're not up for negotiation. It's under the Constitution, under the Bill of Rights, and I think we should be educated on rights we have, and this bill would keep people safe and would also educate those that are kind of on the fence while also providing a exception under 4A and B. It's a subsection 1 and 2, significant cognitive disability. Again, those that don't have the mental fortitude or ability to partake in this course don't have to, and those the state board can prescribe an alternative class, which again is up to them. It's not up to the legislature. It's not up to us to speculate. This is only about the state board. And this bill would promote so much public safety with, in my opinion, little risk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Mr. Davison. We have a rebuttal from Majority Leader Mitchell. You're free to speak.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily saying that the education of guns is a bad thing. What I'm saying is the fact that it's saying it's required is what the problem is. And you could say like cognitive problems, you could say religious exemptions. However, I mean, like, people are required to take classes even though they might not want to take them in school as they are. And one thing that I would also like to point out, I believe in what you're mentioning too, as in our right in order to have guns. It's the right to bear arms. It's not necessarily the requirement, the right to bear arms. And in that essence, it's basically saying the right to bear arms if you choose, not necessarily saying you are required to have a gun. So in essence, I feel like if you want to say that the majority in which backing your bill is basically our constitutional right of having guns, it's a constitutional right to choose if you have a gun. Therefore, it should be an option in order to take this course or not, which is why I'm in opposition to this bill.
Okay, we have a response from Minority Leader Davison. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. Yet again, nowhere in this bill does it say anybody is required to handle a real firearm. There are plastic alternatives that still get the basics down of those who want to own firearms. And even those that don't want to own firearms, I think it's important that we are educated on such a large part of the American foundation. And whether or not you want to own a firearm in the future, I think it is important that we're educated on it. And school is the perfect place to do this because people have not yet, they've not yet been influenced by, for example, gangs that have no firearm safety and are encouraging violence. And I think just getting this in an institution where everyone is educated uniformly and formally in a way that promotes public safety is really important. And secondly, has every class you've taken been a class you want to take? Like, it's just you saying some people don't want to, but it's still important to be educated. Not everyone wants to sit in an English class, but everybody should be literate. It promotes the safety of the future of our nation, and I believe this is a bill that does the same. Whether or not you want to, it does help. with public safety, private safety, and the security of our future. Thank you.
Before we have another comment from Majority Leader Mitchell, I just unless you're retracting your, okay. I just want to warn the Legislative Committee that we will be forced to take a lunch recess in 4 minutes. So just be aware of that. For now, we have a comment from Assemblyman Paris. You're free to speak.
Okay. Before the minority and majority start taking the floor again, I would like to say, for what you said, that the general population is good, honest people, I would like to say it only needs one person with bad intentions to hurt many people. It only needs one. That's all I'm gonna say. Next, kids, right? Teenagers. They are teenagers. They don't know how to control their emotions. If something's happening to their lives and you introduce guns to them, they might use that gun to respond to their emotions. And I don't think that is good. That no one knows the intentions behind a kid taking this gun safety class. And another thing, JRTC marksmanship, as part of being a JRTC commander, those marksmanships are extremely hard to get on, and they are not really, they teach rifle range shooting, not really any other type of gun, but it does teaches the general concept of gun courses. But yeah, our JRTC marksmanships are very hard to get on, so it's not really that reliable. That's all.
Okay, we have another comment from Assemblyman Zamora. You're free to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a lot of points I want to bring up before we enter a motion to go to lunch. For one, I would like to agree with Mr. Mitchell, but I also want to bring up some points of myself. We are looking just at the bill, yet Davison has made several comments contradicting the bill itself. He has said that it's it is a class that isn't mandatory, yet here in the bill it says somewhere that will be mandatory to receive a standard high school diploma. Additionally, he said it's a 3-week course, which I believe is too short. An example of this would be that drivers who take driving courses for 3 weeks still don't have the knowledge and intelligence to drive a car. I believe this course is way too short, and additionally to that, the funding, there is no funding. As Mr. Davison mentioned, I believe he would like honor classes and advanced honor classes for this course. That funding would be extremely, and nowhere here does it say where the funding will come from, whether it comes from the school district or the school department. Along with that, there has been, I would like to mention a statistic. Mr. Paris mentioned the fact that it takes only one person for everything to go wrong. I would like to agree with that. In this year alone, there has been 311 mass shootings in 2023. Now, thinking of that, there's already JROTC programs which teach a lot of gun education, yet there is still a lot of mass shootings occurring, most being from public high schools, which I mentioned earlier, have JROTC programs which teach about gun safety. Along with that, I would like, this bill would have swayed me over if it was labeled as an elective. Yeah, it isn't. And additionally, I would like to ask Mr. Davison for additional information. He mentioned earlier this is a 3-week time limit or a 3-week unit, a part of a bigger course. I would like to know what that bigger course is and whether it is a course similar to JROTC or not. And that's all the comments I would like to make. I would also like to say I rise in opposition of this bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, we now have to take a recess. There's 11:50 a.m. I don't think there will be a vote on this because we're pretty much required to go to lunch. So we will temporarily disband the Legislative Committee.